Hello there, everyone. How you doing today? I hope you're all well. As of the day of uploading this, it is my birthday, July 4th, and to celebrate, I've got a nice old compilation of Karens and Kyles not getting their way and having consequences reach back to them. So I hope you enjoy this Karen Kyle madness. And if you do, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the stories. My hag of a stepmom gave away my PlayStation 4 while I was away in college, so I rent out, quote unquote, her house while she was on her honeymoon with her newest husband. I have been reading lots of Reddit lately, especially entitled parents, but made a new account when I came across this page. I never thought I'd actually try to contribute something. Until now, Reddit has just been my guilty morning coffee read. So here goes. I'm an only son. My mom died of ovarian cancer at only 55 years old. It broke my dad's heart. They had been together since college, and they were the same age, with my dad being a month older. I'm 22, and I'm about to graduate college with my degree in chemistry when the main events start to occur. I went to college on a full-ride scholarship. This is important later. My dad met my new stepmom when she was my mom's nurse at the hospital, where she spent her final days. My stepmom, Grace, played all the right notes to gain my dad's trust. She was empathetic to him, nurturing, comforting after my mom passed. I was 17 and old enough to sense that she was just trying to weasel her way into getting my dad's resources. But it was up to my dad if he wanted to be in a relationship with her. I was in my final year of public school and had just won a scholarship to attend college out of the country the following year. My dad warned my mom for a year, and that whole time, Grace would check in on him by phone every month or so, in my opinion, to scope out the possibility of sinking her hooks into him. After a year passed, Grace took the gloves off and went hard after my dad. Grace was only 40 when she did this, and when she and my dad started seeing each other. I didn't like her, but at the same time, my dad didn't seem so depressed anymore, so I tried to be less pessimistic about her, and gave her the benefit of the doubt. In my gut, I did not trust her though. But we are Scandinavian, and at least in my family, the son does not tell his father what to do, or even offer any opinion. Grace is from the Czech Republic, if you're wondering. God, I mispronounced that hard. Sorry, don't cancel me. My father was a very successful banker during his career and amassed quite a portfolio of wealth. I'll spare you the details, but after 6 months of dating, Grace and my father are married. My dad never really got over my mom though, and he was getting weaker and weaker, even though he was only 57. Since his health was fading, he called me to him and asked me this point blank. Boy, what do you need to set you up in this life? I told him I don't need anything. I'm a man and can take care of myself. But what are you even talking about, Dad? You're going to be around for decades yet. I did remind him that he had living sisters with children, my aunts and cousins. I also reminded him that I had a full scholarship to college, so don't worry about giving me any cash. He was dead only a year later at 59. I, of course, have seen lots of Hollywood movies, so I consider the conspiracy theory that maybe my dad's nurse's wife poisoned him and made him sign over all his money to her, but I really honestly do not think that's what happened. Other relatives didn't like Grace either, but they knew my dad was totally in love with my mom,
and that her death utterly broke him. Well, long story short, my dad bequeathed his 5-bedroom house to me, even though I wasn't expecting it and didn't ask for it. He gave me a small endowment to each of his sisters and their children. He left about 80% of all his existing money to Grace, which amounted to several hundreds of thousands of dollars. My dad ignored me because he's generous to a fault, and still gave me several tens of thousands of dollars, which were very useful to me. Grace tried to put on a friendly front, but I could tell she was angry as heck that she didn't get my dad's house too. That belonged to me, and I had the legal papers to prove it. She was especially mad because we live in an extremely upscale and trendy location, and houses are hard to come by and easily sold for massive profit. During the first few months after my dad's death, I had the nauseating, creepy experience of knowing that Grace was trying to feel me out, to see if I might be into a little relationship with her. Gross. She still stayed at the house though, because over the last 3 years she had gotten used to living there and was acting like she owned it, even though I officially owned it. I was always away at college and only visited my dad's old house once every couple of months. And even then, it wasn't to see Grace, but to see my cousins who lived just a few miles away. I downplayed the fact that it was really my house, and over the months I think Grace gradually forgot she really had no legal right to the house. She probably believed that sooner or later, because I never asked her for any of the hundreds of thousands of dollars my dad left, that I was somehow independently wealthy and I would just give up my house to her. I knew I'd eventually hydrogen bomb this girl when she started dating some new guy only 5 months after my dad was in the ground. And one time, when I came home from college after graduating, she and her new boyfriend, some sleazy looking D-bag named Ivan, who was only a few years older than me, were acting like I was a guest in my own house and that they owned it. I played along. Grace told me she gave away my PlayStation 4 to Ivan's cousin because I'm too old to play with video games. I don't even know this mother effer, and you give him my PS4 to give away to some other little crud who I also don't know? I quickly changed all my network passwords the same day. I smiled, but I knew what I had to do eventually. She also said that she and Ivan were getting married because I just can't mourn your father forever. I have to move on with my life. I tell her that I graduated college and already secured employment with a local firm and will soon find a new place to live. She looks thrilled, especially the part where it looks like I'll soon have a new place to live. Then in a patronizing way she tells me, "You always have a place in our house though. You're welcome to stay whenever you please." Gee, thanks Grace, really generous of you. What I really say is that I'll probably have a new place in 3 months. She says that it's wonderful because she intends to go to her homeland and have a wedding with Ivan and afterward have her honeymoon. She assures me that it's a local affair, otherwise I didn't fight you, honey. And anyway, I know you're so busy. I congratulate her. She asks if I can watch the house for her. Watch my own house? Sure. What I really say is of course I'll take care of the house. I'm careful not to say your house. She and her D-bag fiancé, who I'm pretty sure is only there for Grace's money, go on their trip and immediately put out advertisements in rental websites offering to lease my house. I hire movers and have all of Grace's furniture and possessions boxed up and put in a storage rental facility. I retain all of my parents' furniture that they had before my dad met Grace. Locks? Changed, all of them. Within days, I am inundated with dozens of inquiries regarding my amazing furnished house with fantastic views. I rented to a wonderful young family, a barista and his schoolteacher wife, and their two preteen children. They pay me with their first and last month's rent, and sign a lease for a year. I warn them about my crazy stepmom, who thinks this is her house, but I present them with contact information to my lawyer, the same lawyer my dad retained, in case they need any assurance that I'm on the level. I also give my lawyer the information about the storage facility, including the fact that I generously paid for 4 months of storage in advance, which is a whole month longer than Grace's Sheth honeymoon adventure. I then found a great apartment in the city, near my new place of work. There I met a woman in a restaurant I frequent at night after a long workday. We have been dating 6 months now, and are engaged to be married. Grace, of course, tried to shriek and cause trouble when she realized she got kicked out of my house, but my lawyer quickly shut her mouth without having to ever speak to her garbage face ever again. From what I hear, her and her trash husband left the country, and I assume they're blowing through my dad's money and will soon be broke, like they usually do when they taste a little bit of what they think is the good life. So maybe Grace will go and try to exploit some other lonely man into giving her his money. Speaking of money, the house that I rent out is generating so much money that not only am I able to help pay for my cousin's college, but I moved into a larger apartment of my own together with my fiancée. I love my job, but really I could survive solely on renting my dad's old house. And to think, if Grace had only been cooler and nicer, I might have let her stay at the house, just to be good sport. And definitely if she stayed the hell out of my room. But no, she had to act all proprietary, so I had to make her homeless as a wedding gift. Postscript. I bought another PS4, even though I didn't use my old one that much. It didn't matter, it wasn't for Grace to give away. You don't give away other people's things, you give away your own things. Which is why I chose to kick Grace out of my house. Because it's mine. And I get to decide who stays there. Sorry, entitled mom, dad, and younger brother. I refuse to play happy family, and no contact means no contact. I, 26 female, moved out in late December 2021, and for my emotional health, I cut off contact with my family. For context, I cut off my parents due to them turning into religious fanatics and trying to push their beliefs onto me, and the last straw was when they caused an emotional event where they tried to throw out some stuff that my late older brother left for me to always remember him by. Anime graphic tees and Polaroid photo album of the good times we both had together, and the excuse was, "That is diabolical," or "It's time to let the dead be dead." Mind you, this was their eldest son we are talking about, and they are acting as if he was the worst person on earth. He wasn't. I even cut off my younger brother, 22 male, due to him becoming verbally and emotionally abusive. The only one with who I had contact was my sister-in-law, 28 female, for the sake of my nephew, and she begged me to get help, since she saw that I looked affected. I took her advice and decided to attend therapy, and in a few sessions, I noticed how toxic my family was, and even I ignored all the red flags. Everything was going great until I got a WhatsApp notification from a group that was created. It was my parents and younger brother telling me that 5 months were enough for no contact, and that I had a lot to do to reconcile with the family and try to keep the peace. I read the message many times, and I answered back saying that, while I love them and there is no hate in my heart, I can't go back in contact with the people that damaged my emotional health for them to feel better about themselves, and that I am not willing to play happy family, and that my emotional health is much more important than anything. Before any of them could reply, I got out of the group chat and blocked their numbers. My friends, family, my mom's coworkers, and my boyfriend, 28 male, have said that I am brave for doing this and that I should always put myself first and not let anyone walk all over me. I guess it's good to finally feel free. Good job, OP. You did an amazing job. Keep it up. Parents decided to cancel my 14th birthday party to accommodate my spoiled younger brother. Reinstated it when I told everyone at school. I am 20 male and this happened when I was 14. I have a brother that's about 6 years younger than me, and he was extra coddled by my parents for having been diagnosed with high functioning autism to get his way a lot. And by a lot, I mean nearly all the time. Anything I had, he also had to have. So that meant we had doubles of almost everything that wasn't shared items. And anything he had that I didn't, he would rub in my face any way he could. When I was 11, I begged my parents for a 3DS for my 12th birthday. I got one, but then I was told to lend it to my brother whenever he wanted it, or else I would have it taken away, which was a lot. When my aunt found out after seeing my parents forcibly take my 3DS out of my hands to give to my brother on one of their visits, she let loose on them for such a blatant favoritism. They returned my 3DS immediately, then blamed me for the situation after my aunt left. But they didn't make me give it to my brother again. Instead, my parents went out a few days later and bought another 3DS as a surprise gift for my brother. On several of mine and other people's birthdays, my brother made a huge fuss because the party wasn't all about him, even going so far as to outright state that he was upset because he wasn't getting any gifts or getting to blow out the candles on the cake. My parents learned the hard way that they couldn't enable my brother the way they'd have liked at those parties, and they were actually kicked out of a few for trying. And because of that, other kids at the school stopped inviting him to birthday parties altogether. For me, my birthdays were some of the only days that I had to have about me, because otherwise my parents forced my life to revolve around my little brother. And the year prior to my 13th birthday, and even asked me if I'd let my brother blow out my candles for me because he was upset and pouting. I refused that because I wanted to blow out my own candles. They called me a spoiled brat at first, till my aunt intervened and chastised them on their favoritism yet again, and stated how much she noticed my brother gets nearly everything between the two of us just because he's autistic. My parents got no support from anyone else other than my brother, who was still crying because he wasn't getting to blow out the candles. And because he didn't get his way, he tried to outright spit on my cake out of spite. But my awesome aunt thankfully blocked him before he got the chance, then scolded him till he ran to my mom in tears. My parents took a lot of heat from the other adults there, and then promised to never ask me to let my brother blow out my candles again. But they pretty much just went through the motions for the rest of the party. My aunt pretty much took over coordinating everything else from that point. The following year, a couple of weeks before my birthday, my parents sat me down and told me they were going to get me some gifts and a small cake. But my birthday party was effectively cancelled to avoid my brother having another meltdown. I told them I couldn't believe they were doing this to me, and they just seemed to shrug it off without a care. So at school over the next week, I told my friends, my teachers, and even my school counselor. All of them were appalled by my parents' lack of consideration or empathy. The vice principal even found out and consoled me. And of all of this, got back to my parents through social media. My parents ended up grounding and gaslighting me for telling so many people, But that didn't stop me from still telling everyone at school that I was grounded for just being upset my birthday party was cancelled for no good reason. I guess that made it a lot worse because several of my parents' own friends, along with parents of two other kids in the school, called them or sent them Facebook messages basically saying, "What the heck is wrong with you?" And suddenly, just like that, I was ungrounded. I didn't get an apology either. My dad just walked into my room with his arms crossed, told me my grounding was over early, and then walked out. That was it. I thought my party was still cancelled because nobody said anything about it, and my brother thought it hilarious and rubbed it in my face that I wasn't going to get to celebrate. But by the end of 2 weeks, my parents held a surprise party for me at my favorite restaurant, and then started claiming that it was their intent all along. I knew it wasn't. From what I'd seen, everyone was incredibly unhappy with them for what they did, and it showed with any interactions family members had with my parents. So they ended up doing the surprise party and tried to save what little of their reputations they had left. But I'm pretty sure they had to pay through the nose that day just to accommodate me. I got dinner with all my friends at my favorite restaurant that had a small arcade, and even got the PS4 game system I'd been jonesing for at the time. I could tell it was all pretty much planned and brought last minute, because my dad had a look about him that my aunt comically described as looking like a moth had flown out of his wallet. My brother, of course, made a huge fuss that I got a surprise party, but with so many of my friends and their parents there, my mom and dad finally put their feet down on my brother to stop his tantrum when he wanted to push my cake off the table. My brother ended up getting a timeout for the first time since he was a toddler, and my mom had to stay with him to make sure he didn't do anything crazy. And he did try several times to run to the cake or a stack of presents. Who knows what he would have done had it not been for the fact one adult was always on guard. Even my dad stood guard to keep him away. My mom ended up having to remove my brother and herself from the party entirely, and took my little bro to a McDonald's nearby so he could have fun in their play area. And I heard later that she spent at least an hour trying to get him to come down out of the place tube structure. And he only did so because he had to use the bathroom, and then tried to run right back in again. My parents never tried to cancel my birthday again while I still lived with them, though they never again tried as hard or spent as much. For the remaining 4 years I was under their roof, my birthday parties consisted of a local pizza parlor, a cake without my name even written on it, and never again anything as expensive as a new gaming system. I don't mean to sound spoiled, but I was a bit disappointed I never got a cake with my name on it again. My aunt called my parents out on that each year, and each year they claimed they forgot to get the cake decorated. I'm pretty sure the reason was that my brother always refused to eat pieces of cake that had writing of someone else's name on it at any party. And they couldn't put his name on just any cake, or it would have looked very bad for them. But the fact that I still got a day that was just about me, and not at all about my brother, was still fantastic in my book. Especially because just about everything else revolved around him. During each of my remaining birthday parties while still living at home, my brother made a fuss, and my mom took him somewhere else to calm him down. I was still required to share my PS4 with my brother, but it was still mine, and took it with me when I moved out at 18. Little bro did not like that, and had a huge fit till my parents went out and bought another PS4 for him. When I moved out, they finally had to deal with how they'd raised my brother to be so spoiled, because I wasn't there to help them with him anymore. On his recent 14th birthday, he went mental on my parents for not getting him a PS5. He is now currently grounded for I don't know how long after causing hundreds, or maybe even thousands of dollars in collateral damage during his rampage. He picked up a chair and just started destroying anything that was in front of him with it. And my parents just looked mentally checked out when I saw them last. My aunt also told me that they confided in her that they wished they could send my brother to military or boarding school in the future because they can't handle the monster they created anymore. But there's no way they can afford that. I'd be lying if I said I didn't find it ironically funny. Mom thinks it'd be hilarious to have her child hold up a sign saying he's been kidnapped. I was telling this story to a friend of mine the other day and was told I should post this here. I'm a former police officer who had to retire due to being badly injured, but this was one of my last calls before the incident that forced me into retirement. I worked for a small town police department with only 5 or 6 police officers on duty at a given time, and we each covered a vast swath of land. My beat mainly was the rural area and country highway that passes through our little town. One clear sunny afternoon, I'm doing speed enforcement on the highway when my radio crackles to life of a possible kidnapping in progress, and the dispatcher proceeds to provide the details of the make and model of the car, including the female driver with short blonde hair. I proceed to get onto my computer and see if there are any more details given about this. And sure enough, there is in the call log. It provides even more details saying, RP, reporting party, reports that a young kid sitting in the hatchback part of the vehicle with a sign that says, Help, I've been kidnapped. Call 911, and their hands appear to be tied together. While this call is within our jurisdiction, they're nowhere near me, so there's nothing I can do at the moment besides other officers and sheriff deputies who are already looking for the vehicle. All is quiet for the next 10 minutes. Everybody is behaving themselves and driving the speed limit when my radio crackles to life again. We're getting another call regarding the reported kidnapping. They're now traveling S on County Highway 123, and my ears perk up and my heart starts to race as that vehicle is coming to my direction and will be here any minute. As I'm waiting for the call, dispatch gets 3 more calls from the fellow drivers who have seen this young kid holding up the Help, I've been kidnapped sign and had called 911 to report it. With this stretch of highway being very flat, I'm able to see cars miles and miles away, especially if I'm using binos. And sure enough, here comes the van, and the van passes me, and I can see the female driver who matches the description given by the RPs, and the kid sitting up against the sidewall in the hatchback area. I don't pull out right away, just in case this is an honest-to-God kidnapping. I don't want to spook the driver and get into a high-speed chase. Not to mention, I'm completely alone, and in this type of situation, you want to have a decent amount of backup in case they decide to run, shoot it out, or whatever. So I wait until she's a good mile or 2 away, then I pull out and tail her from that distance until I can get some backup. Luckily, there is a highway patrol barracks not too far away, and they heard my call for assistance. Just as we pass the road that leads to the highway patrol barracks, I see 4 trooper vehicles pull out behind me, so I fall back and let the troopers take lead in the case, in case this turned to be a chase that they'd be in position. Well, we're getting into position to stop the van. We're talking about how we're going to approach the situation. Are we going to do a soft traffic stop and proceed as a regular traffic stop and just pull the driver out of the vehicle? Or are we going to do a full felony stop? We decided to do a full felony stop, so we spread out across 4 lanes of traffic and turn all our lights on and blip our sirens at the same time. The female doesn't pull over to the side of the highway in the breakdown lane, but instead slammed on the brakes and stops in the middle of the highway. We all position our vehicles to give us the maximum amount of coverage in case of a gunfight, and then get out of with our weapons drawn, while ordering the female driver out of the vehicle. We should have known if something was up as soon as she got out of the vehicle. She started screaming, "It was a freaking joke!" But right now, we're not too interested in what she has to say. The point man keeps telling her to keep walking backwards until we tell her to stop, and then get down on the ground. She complies, and she's cuffed. Next, we turn our attention to the female passenger, whom we didn't know at the time, as we couldn't see her face, was the female driver's 13-year-old daughter. But none, we ordered her backwards, to get on the ground, and cuffed her. We did this for the next 4 passengers who were riding in the 4 seats back in the back of the van. Once we got all perceived threats out of the vehicle and secured, 2 troopers went up to clear the vehicle, while another trooper and myself rescued the young boy who was bowling from the hatchback and put him in the back of one of our vehicles to get him away from his perceived kidnappers. The whole time, mind you, the driver and the female passengers kept yelling, "It's a joke! He's my son/brother! I can't believe you guys!" So after securing everybody in separate vehicles, we start to get to the bottom of this situation. The first person we talk to is a young boy, who has since calmed down after the female trooper got him a stuffed dinosaur and a snack, and began to ask him some questions. This is when we learned the whole thing was the female driver's and her daughter's sick idea of a funny prank, since the van was full and they decided to put the young kid in the hatchback. They thought it'd be funny to make a sign saying, "Help! I've been kidnapped!" and have the young boy hold it up while somebody else in the van recorded the reaction of other drivers as they read the sign. Apparently they've been doing it all day and just didn't get caught until I reached the area. After talking to the other passengers, who were all under the age of 16, and learned it was mainly the idea of the mother and the teen daughter, and after some discussion with the county DA on how it should be handled, we were told to kick the 4 teenagers in the back loose with no charges, to write the teenage daughter the juvenile equivalent of a ticket for inducing panic, and last but not least, save the best for last, for the mom. I opened the back door of my vehicle so I could talk to the mom. As soon as I did, she started to get out of the vehicle when I told her to stay put. She said, "Why? Why? Don't you need to take the handcuffs off me so I can sign the ticket you're going to give me, right?" I said, "It's not quite that simple. I'm afraid you're in a bit more trouble than a simple ticket. You're going to be charged with several felonies." This is when she lost it and started screaming over and over again, "It was a freaking joke. I can't believe nobody can take a freaking joke anymore. It was a joke. Now uncuff me or I'm going to have my husband sue you for unlawful detention." I proceeded to read her Miranda warning while she sobs with no tears, I might add, while muttering it was a freaking joke. After I finished with her Miranda warning, I asked her if she was willing to talk to me. She told me to frick off. I did just that and shut the door to let her wait for the transport vehicle. By the time this husband and father shown up at the scene to collect the kids and the vehicle and was filled in on the situation, all he could do was shake his head and say, "This isn't the first time she's done some stupid crap like this. It's the first time she's been caught, and I have warned her in the past not to do it, because I knew it would end up in a situation like this." After about 10 minutes, the transport van showed up and took her away. I went back to a quiet afternoon of catching speeders. The female driver was charged with the following: 7 counts of inducing panic, all misdemeanor, 7 counts of felony child endangerment, 1 for each kid she had in the vehicle, Reason it was a felony is that her actions put the children's lives in danger by forcing us to do a felony stop over a prank/joke. One count of having an unrestrained child. She decided to put her 6-year-old son in the hatchback of the van because they didn't have any room up front. Well, none of these kids should have been back there. I'd rather one of the older kids instead of the 6-year-old. The reason why? Because the other boys were too tall and wouldn't have been comfortable back there. Entitled mother has absolutely no idea how money works. This is being written by a bystander. This does not currently affect me, but I've got a funny feeling it may someday. First, let me set the stage. We have EM, entitled mother, EMS, entitled mother sister, NES, not entitled son, and NEB, not entitled brother. EM's husband passed away just over a decade ago. EM has spent her entire life like this, and somehow her two offspring have incredible work ethic and have both become incredibly successful in life. Now, onto the story, which has several parts. What I am looking for is advice when the problem inevitably grows and starts affecting even more people than it already has. The root issue is that EM has absolutely zero concept of how money works and thinks that no matter what she does, money will just reappear in her bank account. She also has this absolute obsession with manipulating people and giving away gifts all the time to people, even people she doesn't know. EM has basically never worked. She was an RN at one point in time, but quickly gave that up to become a stay-at-home mom for her and her husband's 3 kids. The husband was very tough on his kids, so to some extent she ended up playing good cop and letting a lot of things slide. Early in their marriage, EM wound up with credit cards, and her husband discussed budgeting and safe spending habits. They were starting a family, and despite EM's husband having a good job, they needed to make sure they could provide for the new family. A month later, EM's husband finds out she had already maxed out the credit card. He confronted her, to which she acted upset. Past that point, he confiscated her credit card and started giving her an allowance so he could better reel her in. Up until he passed away a decade ago, EM's husband ran a much stricter household in terms of finances. He did the bills, handled the allowances for her, and basically ran the household. Here's the issue, though. Now that EM's kids are grown, you would have thought they would have learned her games and tried to fend her off, right? Wrong. Very, very wrong. NES and NEB grew up in the Northeast, and EM and her husband ended up buying a vacation home down south so they could get away from the cold. This became their permanent residence close to when EM's husband's health started declining. Eventually, this house ended up becoming her inheritance, along with, I believe, most of his money. On his deathbed, he made most of his sons, NES and NEB, promise that they would take care of EM and just let her live in this blissful ignorance until she joins him in heaven one day. They took this literally. Somehow, EM managed to shred through his entire retirement in 10 years. Now, of course, I do not know exactly how much he had saved for retirement, but based on conversations and her spending habits, it had to be close to 7 digits. All of a sudden, NES decided to check in and found out she was down to her last 40,000. He was absolutely stunned and had no idea what to do, so he sought out legal advice. This is a basic summary of the advisor's plans. 1. Have her sell the house. It's a huge house on a plot of land worth a lot of money. 2 floors. She had bad knees. Plus, it is uninsured because of how out of code the place is. 2. Have her move to a nice condo or apartment with the money. Or 3. Take over her finances. But NES decided they did not want to take over her finances. They had a long talk with her, and she broke down sobbing and crying, saying it wasn't fair, and they didn't know what they were talking about. In the end, they just decided to let her be. Now it is about 1 year later, and we are positive she is out of money and won't tell anyone. Her sister, EMS, accidentally let it slip that she was actually paying EM about $1,000 a month of her own money, coupled with EM Social Security, to try and stop her from burning out the money. Despite this, we know she is close to being out. So what can be done? Obviously, someone needs to take control of her finances, but she refuses to sell the home and is 100% accepting free government handout money and care packages from her NES and her sons. My thoughts on this are, while it may be cruel, you just gotta let her live as be. If she's willing to take government handouts, she could probably live comfortably on her home, or at least semi-comfortably. I live in an apartment and get disability, personally, as of recording this video. I have to wear a tight belt most of the time, but I live fairly comfortably. Now, the most important part is you probably shouldn't give in to her begging, because she'll probably beg for money, and you can't give it to her, otherwise she'll just fall into that lifestyle again. As much as it pains me to say it, you need to put her on cold turkey, essentially. You're going to call police? Sure, I'll wait. I, like so many that have passed through this sub, never fully believed these stories. Seriously, people can't be that dense. Even as a police officer, I cannot recall in my 7 years as a sworn officer coming across these people that are as dense as some of these stories. Well, today disabused me of that notation. Also, this will not be word for word, but to the best of my memory. Also, apologies for my English. I graduated a prestigious private school in the southern US and got my bachelor's in criminology and working on my master's at a university in the Midwest. So any mistake in my spelling or grammar is completely my fault. Background: I am a USMC vet and a police officer. Also, I am currently on admin duty because I tore my quad when I failed to properly jump a fence during a foot chase. So I am working with a cane currently. Cast: Karen equals Karen, well, obviously. AM equals awesome manager. BC equals buddy cop. Me equals hi, it's me. The event: I had just gotten off my duty shift, and I decided that since the weather is going to be nice over my weekend, I'm going to get a couple steaks, some corn, and just some stuff for a cookout with a couple of my buddies. I'm looking for the steaks, comparing cuts before I put one back. When I hear it, the mating call of the wild Karen. This is a sound that I am familiar with, but you can't seriously think that I work here. I am in a plain, logoless white polo shirt, tucked into my uniform pants, midnight blue cargo pants, and in my black boots. The workers here wear black button-up shirts, khaki pants, and a green apron with the store name on it. Managers tend to wear black pants, but still have the apron, but with manager on the name tag. Sure enough, it was for me. Since I had ignored her, I earned an even more stern throat clearing directed towards me, and then a shrill, "Excuse me." I'm an asshole, but I also think I'm hilarious. This is a horrible combination when facing a Karen. It is because of this disastrous mix of character traits that I called back to her without a look. Absolutely, you are excused. The bathroom is that way, with a gesture towards the sign for the restroom, before adding, and I'm sure they have something in the pharmacy if you need more than that. Karen, that is no way to speak to a customer. You didn't even ask what I needed. Now. Me, interrupting her. Look, I don't care. I'm not an employee here. I have no duty to help you. I do not look anything like a staff member here. If there is nothing else, I will be returning to my shopping. Yeah, I know I was rude. I'm not going to make excuses for it, but I have very little patience for these entitled morons. Karen, in full banshee shriek. I want your manager. I am going to. Me, going into full knife-handling NCO Marine bellow out. Shut your mouth. I am a customer. I don't work here. Stop harassing me. The problem with going full devil dog when in public is the general public is not very accustomed to the volume level a good yell from the diaphragm can produce. Also, the tone of voice is very hostile. The bigger problem with going full devil dog is when you're using a cane to keep you standing, it becomes very easy for you to be toppled. And that is exactly what that Karen did. Fair play, Karen, fair play. She kicked my cane out from under my hand, and I was far too forward to recover, and went down like a sack of potatoes. Then she started hitting me with her purse. I have been hit harder by pillows wielded by my 6-year-old niece, by the way, and yelling about me assaulting her and her needing the police. I don't know if it was 2 minutes or 30 seconds, but it wasn't that long. It just felt like it was a bit because I was embarrassed about how easily I went down, and how much it hurt my leg. But it was at this point that AM, awesome manager, comes over and gets Karen off me and helps me up. The whole time Karen is still screaming, until she remembered that she had her own phone and called 911, screaming things at me like, I'm calling the police! You're in trouble now. And I didn't ask for you to R-word me. What? Awesome Manager looked at me as confused as I was, and I just shrugged. Awesome Manager said, Do you know what's going on? Me? Yeah, she tried to get my attention. I made a glib remark. She told me to get my manager. I dressed her down. Then I was in the middle of unloading on her. I think she kicked my cane and I went down. You saw the rest. Karen said, Liar, you felt me up, and then when I pushed you off of me, you hit me with that stick, and if it wasn't for the fact that I hit you with my purse, I'd be dead. At this time, I'm pretty sure the dispatcher had said something to her. As she said on the phone, Yeah, he's about a 6-foot large white man in a white polo and black pants with boots. We're at the store name and location. Yes, I think I'm safe. The manager is here, but he seems to know my attacker. I think he wants to R-word me too. No, Karen. No one wants to assault you. AM and I exchanged looks before Awesome Manager asks me. It appears she called the police. Can I ask you to wait in the store? He says to me. Me, with a nod. Sure, I'll wait. It was only a couple of minutes before BC comes walking up. Insert my last name. What's happening here? We got a call out about sexual assault? The fact that I was addressed before Karen sent her into orbit. I could see BC's eyes just glaze over, and since I had trained BC when she joined the force, I knew this meant she already tuned out the irate Karen. I looked at the BC and said, Take her statement. This is the manager on duty. Then review the security footage. Karen, being Karen, starts with me. We don't need the security footage. This man assaulted me. Arrest him. And then she threw this gem out. You're a woman and you know him. You must know what type of a man he is. You can be honest that he probably assaulted you too. BC looked over to the manager and said, I think it would help more if I were to see that footage first. It was at this point that BC's partner tells the Karen that we both, Karen and I, are supposed to stay with him while BC goes with the manager. Apparently, not only did the security camera catch everything in 1080p, but it also had audio. BC returned about 5 minutes later, looked at her partner, and then pointed to Karen. Arrest her for assault and making a false report. BC then got into Karen's face and said, I have been assaulted in the past. It is people like you that make false claims, that make it so hard for us actual victims to get the help we need. Amen. And that really was the end of it. The AM helped me get the rest of my things for the grill out, and I got a nice 20%, 25% off coupon. Ha ha, nice. Hello there, everyone. How you doing today? I hope you're all well. Today I've got some stories for you all from r/I don't work here lady. If you're seeing this live on Twitch, check out my YouTube channel. If you're seeing this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you enjoy, maybe leave a comment or two. Now, without further ado, let's get started with our first story. I got promoted while shopping at a store I don't work at. So, yesterday I was at my favorite local supermarket. I've been shopping there pretty much once a week for the past 6 years. I know the place like the back of my hand. I know most of the employees by name. I live in a small town of less than 4,000 people. As I'm standing in the taco aisle, trying to decide exactly how hard to punish my bathroom later, I picked ghost pepper salsa, so a lot. I am approached by a woman who must have been 75 if she was a day. SL will be sweet lady and M will be me. SL, son, can you help me locate the aluminum foil? Me, sure, it's right this way. Walks her to aisle 7B. M said, it's pretty high up. Let me grab it for you. Do you want the Reynolds or the store brand? Sweet lady said, the name brand, please. And I hand her a 200-foot roll. Do you need any help finding anything else? I'm a walking directory of this store. She hands me her shopping list. I spent about 10 minutes filling her cart with heavy, hard-to-reach items, and then I got back to my shopping cart with a smile and say, have a great day. As I'm standing in the checkout, I see the SL arguing with the floor manager. Greg, he goes to my church. We're pretty familiar with each other, over by the express line. I pay for my groceries and walk over to be nosy and maybe help out. SL is telling Greg that the big guy with the red beard helped her. I didn't get his name, and she wants to see him get a bonus, promotion, or employee of the month or something. Greg is insistent that no one with that description works there. I get to the counter, and before I can explain that I don't even work there, Greg pipes up. Greg, it's a sweet lady. Oh, you mean Mark. Yeah, he's one of our best employees. G to me. Mark, this lady has been singing your praises for the past 5 minutes. I didn't even know you were working today. Me, lying through my teeth. Well, Sharon, a cashier I know, called me and said we were slammed, so I came in on my day off. Well, that's some real initiative. How would you like to be assistant to the regional manager? We're both huge Office fans. I say, "Oh my god, thank you. Are you sure?" And then he said, "Well, you've definitely earned it." And then Sweet Lady said, "See, this is why I shop here instead of Walmart. Even though you guys charge more, you care about your employees. And your employees care about your customers." So that's how I became assistant to the regional manager at a store I'm not even employed by. Nice, nice, nice. Karen slapped and pushed me because I was ignoring her and not helping. I'm an 18-year-old male, born completely deaf and mute. Also, I am partially blind in my left eye. I live with my sister, a 28 female, who had been taking care of me since our parents died. Recently, she got married and went on her honeymoon, so I'm on my own for a few weeks. This happened yesterday. Usually, whenever I go out, I am accompanied by my sister due to my disability. But now, she's on her honeymoon. I had to go out alone. There was a new supermarket opened in our area, and I needed some items, so I decided to go there and grab them. My bad for wearing a red-colored shirt, almost similar to the employees working there. But if you look closely, you could see that it was not the uniform. I was at the electronics section, looking for some batteries, when I see an old man struggling to get some DVDs at the top shelf. Since I'm tall, I helped him. He thanked me, I can do lip reading, and went on his way. Then I began looking for the batteries. That's when I felt someone grab my left wrist. I turned around, and a woman in her late 40s slapped me. Not like a gentle slap, it's like a slap. Like a slap. Big ol' slap. She was speaking something, but I couldn't follow her lips as she spoke too fast. However, I was able to catch some words like you and ignore and job and etc. So I signed to her that I am deaf. Apparently, this was a wrong move because she became even more irate towards the signs. Apparently, she was yelling something, but I couldn't catch anything. So I took my notebook and started writing that I am deaf and mute. Before I could finish, she grabbed the notebook and pen and threw them away. She then slapped me again and pushed me to the ground. Luckily, by this time a store manager came to see what the commotion was about. He saw me on the ground and helped me up. Then he asked me what happened. Before I can sign to him, Karen starts to yell at the employee. I don't know what she said as she was not facing me. After she finished, I signed to the employee that I could neither hear nor speak. Fortunately, he understood and explained this to the lady, but she's still not convinced. She tries to assault me again, but I moved away. Then I wrote and showed the employee to call the cops on her. The employee nodded and instantly called the cops. Karen tried to run away, but the security caught her. The police arrived in about 10 minutes. They first talked to the employee who explained the situation, about how Karen assaulted me because she mistook me for a store employee. One police officer comes and speaks to me. I understood that he wanted my version of events, so I wrote everything down and showed it to the officer. Then they went to check the CCTV footage, then came back and asked me if I wanted to press charges. I gladly said yes. Karen was then placed in handcuffs and given a free ride at the back of a police cruiser. The manager then explained to me that Karen thought I worked there, and she became angry that I ignored her. She had been standing on my left side, so obviously I couldn't see her. The store manager then offered me a 50% discount on the products. I texted my sister about the events that happened, and she was livid. Oh, did I mention my sister is a lawyer? She told me that she herself will be handling the case, and would see to it that Karen would get the maximum time. Court date is about 40 days from now. I will update about it after court. Here's the next story. I did not accept the job. Now please, let me enjoy my holiday. This happened about 4 years ago when I was looking for work. My second interview was for a marketing position at a new firm. The interview went well, and I was offered a trial shift the following Monday. On turning up, it became clear that this wasn't a marketing job, but a door-to-door sales job. That was basically a huge MLM. The service was to sign people up for charities on monthly donations. To make matters worse, we were told to lie to consumers about our pay status. We would make a commission effective to their first 2 months' donation. My boss would then get another month, and the company would get the rest equivalent to the 6 months' donations. We weren't supposed to tell people that, and had to tell them that we were salaried. We weren't. I only found out during the trial that it was commission only. So far, not so good. When they offer me the job, I let them know that I have another interview lined up the following day, and I tell them I'll let them know by the end of the week. The interview goes well. It's a real, albeit temporary, role, and I'm offered the job and inform the MLM of my decision. This is somehow a 30-minute call where he's still trying to convince me to work for him and have me work for him. And then I'm saying I'm not interested at all. Fast forward to the next Monday, and I'm rudely awoken at 9:15 with a phone call. I answer this. I hadn't saved his number. Hello, me speaking. MLM, where the heck are you? Me? Sorry, what? You were meant to be here by 8:30. This isn't a good start to your first day, is it? Why are you so late? Sorry, but who is this? It's not the interviewer from, but the company who you work for. It's too late now. Your team has left. You better be on time tomorrow. Sorry, there's been a misunderstanding. I got offered a job at insert job here and accepted that role. Sorry for this, MLM said. Well, you should have told us. It's not professional to just not turn up, and we would have hired someone else. Now your team is short-staffed. I told the other guy. Maybe check with him. Anyway, I need to go. Bye. Hoping this is resolved, I get up and go about my day. Tuesday morning, I am again woken up to the same guy, demanding reasons for me not turning up to work. Apparently, not working for them isn't a valid excuse. This amazing experience continued into the following Monday, where I was, quote-unquote, let go for unauthorized absences. When asked if that means he'll stop phoning me, he told me to grow up and be professional about it. I think I dodged a bullet there. Karen breaks into tears when in front of cops. This is my first post here, so I apologize if I get formatting and stuff wrong. This also happened around 10 years ago, so I may miss some important details. Sorry. Characters: Mom, Dad, me, and Karen, plus some minor characters like cop, judge, and employee. Important background: my mom is paralyzed from the waist down, so my dad and I would take her out grocery shopping every now and then. She had a motorized wheelchair, but it was too bulky to take out with us to the store. So we brought her non-motorized push wheelchair with us. Dad would push her around while I would pull stuff off the shelves she wanted us to get and put them in our cart. One other note. Dad has a voice that he's used in the past to scare people. Just ask old potential boyfriend of mine. While doing this, Karen began yelling, "Hey, miss!" then whistling. Then the dreaded throat clear. I put the last item in the cart and turned and said, "Can I help you?" when she thrust a list at me and demanded, "Get me the stuff on my list." I should note that I looked nothing like the employees. They wear blue from head to toe, basically, and I was wearing a yellow sundress with daisies on it. I said, "No, I'm helping my mother now. I think there's an employee at the front desk who can help you." She didn't like this and reached out to grab my arm, saying something like, "You will help me now." Sorry, no threats of, "I will get you fired." I shoved her away, shouted, "No," when I felt the blood running down my arm where her nails had been. They had broken the skin on my bicep. Dad looked over and kind of freaked when he saw the blood and shouted, "Leave my daughter alone." Mom was looking at something on her list, but my dad's voice was loud enough to get an employee to rush over. He asked if there was a problem, and my dad said, "This woman just assaulted my daughter. Do you have a first aid kit or something to help her out? I'm going to call the cops while you get this." Upon hearing the word cops, the lady just sunk to the floor crying and trying to say it was just a misunderstanding. When the cops arrived, I had been bandaged up, and the manager had come up, and upon listening to me and my dad's story, as well as the employee describing the aftermath, they went to the back with the manager to check the video. Meanwhile, the lady is crying, saying, "I'll lose my kids." No sorry, or anything like that. The cops arrested her for assault on a minor and took her away crying. At the trial later, the two things I most remember is that she was on probation and did indeed lose custody of her kids. I think the father got them. And she tried to say it was an honest mistake. I thought she was an employee. Whereupon the judge said, "Even if she was an employee, what gives you the right to grab someone like that?" While showing her the pictures that were taken of my bloody arm. She broke into more tears as the judge read her sentence, including the loss of her children due to violating her probation, plus some community service, I think. Much later, as part of her effort to get her children back, she had to write me a letter of apology, which is still in my parents' attic, in a box. Serves the entitled Karen right. If you're enjoying today's video and feel like getting a snack, please check out our sponsor today and use the code FAMPIRE with an F in the beginning, not a V, and get 10% off. And you'll also be supporting my channel while doing so. Eating snacks and supporting your favorite creator. What could be better? I don't work here, but now you get to come to my work. I'm a correctional officer and work nights. After work, I normally just go home and sleep to get ready for my next 12-hour shift. However, on my days off, I take the time to do chores and housework. On this day, I did not have the night off, so I had to do what I could get done before going to bed. So I went home and picked up my wife and kiddos to do grocery shopping. We went to get to the store and start doing the usual. A lady comes up to me and my family and starts asking direction to items. Some I know and some I don't. So I tell her where the things I know are and apologize for the things I don't. Now, mind you, I'm in full uniform. Taser, cross straw, cuffs on each hip, fogger on left thigh, spray, and all the other items I use at work. On top of all that, I smell of peppers, sweat, mold, and rust, as the facility I work at is old and, well, moist. She seems upset, but walks away. We continue shopping, and after a while, we meet up with the lady, and she spots us and comes down. But this time, she's pissed. She starts screaming that I'm the worst employee ever, and I should be fired for not helping. She continues on about how I should be catching shoplifters or backwatching the cameras instead of flirting with this word I will not say 'cause it is offensive. Yay, she is one of those. I interrupt her rant and saw the usual words of, I do not work here. She of course fails to hear them, as is the usual on this sub, and continues her rant, yelling and screaming that she picked me to help her because I'm the asset protection and should know where everything is. I ask my wife to take the kids and find a manager for this Karen. Lady, from now on known as Karen, is none too pleased to hear her secret identity outed and increases her volume. I tried to explain to Karen that I am a jailer, not loss prevention at a grocery store. I tell her to go pound sand and find someone that actually works here. I then turn my back and start to walk away when I'm nailed in the back of the head and fall forward in a full faceplant. I'm hurting, dazed, and can feel glass all around me. I roll onto my back and feel around. It's pasta sauce. This rude lady just sprayed me with pasta sauce. She's still yelling and screaming and raises another jar to throw. I grab my taser, aim, and pop. Down she goes, hard. I get up, stumble over, flip her around, and cuff her. She's out like a light. My guess is the fall. And then sit down and take an inventory of myself. I'm bleeding pretty bad from my head, but I seem to be alright. My wife, customers, and management shows up. As I'm checking over Karen, I pulled my trauma kit off the back of my belt and get to the smelling salts. I tell them to call 911 and continue checking on Karen. She's awake, dazed, and blissfully quiet. The rest goes as expected. The police arrive, question me, question her, watch the cameras, and I, well, refuse medical treatment, but do press charges. My wife is a boss ass bitch. I say that with reverence. She's medically trained and will take good care of me. I go home. She asked if I wanted staples or glue. I chose glue. She glues my head and we take a shower. I go to sleep and she wakes me up from time to time, which I know isn't the best idea, but hey, a few days later I'm writing this, so I ended up alright. I get a call a couple hours later for my shift, ordering me to come in to talk early to rank. Dreading this, I follow my orders and get up, shaved, showered, and dressed. I go in and have to explain the whole thing again and again. Then they show me the video from the store. It's exactly as I explained, though I did note she could throw far better than I could have dreamed. They order me not to wear my uniform outside of work, and tell me that I'll be working in booking tonight. I'm not very good at booking, but look forward to the training and activity of it, as the rest of the facility is slow and boring. Around 11 p.m. rolls around, and who do I see being escorted into booking but Karen? I start to talk, but my sergeant taps me and shushes me. He talks to the deputy bringing her in, and they start doing the paperwork while I watch and try to learn as much as possible. She's charged with aggravated assault of a law enforcement officer and possession of meth. Who would have thought? Now, Carrie gets to live at my workplace. I don't get to work in the female zones, but the booking process was fun. Though I wasn't allowed to do anything but watch. After she's booked, I'm told to report to another zone and end up finishing the night. Now, for the past few days, pasta jokes have been in abundance, and her nickname is Pasta Lady. Her court date isn't for a while, and she's reportedly not getting along with the other inmates, and is in detox shoe. Ah, yes. Landlord is jealous of my income. Raises my rent $500. I screw him years later for $20K. TLDR is the same as the title. Landlord is jealous of my income, raises my rent 50%. I screw him over years later for $20K. All names have been changed. In the late 90s, wife and I were just married. Just getting started. And we decided to dink. Double income, no kids. It for a few years to save up for a down payment on a house. The dot-com bubble was still rising, and I was a newly minted software developer. I had an entry-level job for a while and got recruited to a new city and a new job that paid 3 times what I was making before. It was an offer too good to pass up. I ran the numbers, and it was a no-brainer. By living frugally and saving my entire salary, and living off just her income, we would easily have enough in a year to put 20% down payment on a new house. We rented an apartment in the new city that was listed for $950 a month. The landlord was a real estate agent who owned 2-bedroom condo as an investment property. Let's call him Hank Wazowski. Hank was a thin, gray, no-nonsense guy. He was pleasant enough, but perfunctory, dry, and had no sense of humor. He made a point of explaining that under no circumstances was he responsible for maintaining the garbage disposal, and it was not included in the rental agreement, and he would not be responsible for fixing it if it were to break. Okay. He seemed slightly amused by us. A clueless, young, newlywed couple. But I could tell he wanted to rent to us because we were obviously a safe choice as renters. We filled out the rental agreement and the credit check, and this is where my troubles began. Hank looked hard at the credit application, where I listed my job title, software developer, and my income, $75K. For a 23-year-old in his second year out of college in the late 1990s, this is a small fortune. Throw in my wife's salary, and we were over 6 figures in income, renting an apartment far beneath our means. Like I said, dink is the way to go when starting out. I can't believe how much money you make, Hank must have said over a half-dozen times, muttering under his breath. I explained we were saving to buy a house, and that we were only going to stay in the apartment a year. We might stay a few months after the term is over. Would month-to-month be okay for after a year? Hank assured us that would be fine. We saw Hank only once during the year, and he again mentioned my salary and how he couldn't believe that's what software developers were making. It was awkward, and I gave a vague reply. Anyway, a year later, we found a house to buy, signed all the papers, and were making plans to move. The new house wasn't going to be ready until 2 months after our rental lease was up, so I called Hank to ask if we could, as discussed, simply extend the lease by 2 months before moving out. Hank assured me on the phone it would be no problem, and he would send over an extension for us to sign. The extension arrived in the mail, and it included a month-to-month clause, and a $500 increase in the rent. I flipped out and called him. Hank, why are you increasing the rent over 50%? That's too much. That's more than my mortgage is going to be. He was super condescending to me. Rocky Moose, it's what the apartment goes for now. I would be losing money renting it for less. I tried to reason with him, but it was very clear. He knew we could afford the 500 and had no choice in the matter. And he was going to screw us over as best he could. He got angry with me for arguing my point, and I'll never forget his parting words. You don't have to like it, Rocky Moose. You just have to pay it. My wife and I tried to figure out a way to move out early by putting our furniture in storage for a couple months and crashing with friends. But it just wasn't going to work out. I swallowed my pride and wrote out the check for $1,450 for the extra month. A month later, I wrote out a similar check. And then we moved out. I made sure the apartment was spotless before moving. But still, Hank withheld $300 from our security deposit for BS things that were just a way for him to squeeze a few more dollars from the kids, who made too much money. 100 for cleaning, sure, but 300 was obscene. In my mind, he screwed me out for over $1,200, and there was nothing I could do about it. What made it even more infuriating is that I saw the ad Hank had put in the paper after he moved out, and he listed the apartment for rent at only $150 more than we have been paying originally, not the grossly inflated $500 increase. And it didn't rent. A month later, I saw the same ad, and he lowered the price to $75 more than what we had paying. And I assume it got rented since the ad stopped appearing. Fast forward about 5 years. Life is good. The house is good. We have had a baby. And even though the dot-com bubble has burst, I'm still employed. One day, out of the blue, I overhear one of my coworkers, Phil, a senior developer, talking to the guy working at the reception desk. Hey, Mike, I'm expecting someone to drop off some paper for me. If a Hank Wazowski asks for me, tell him I'll be right out. I freeze and get a taste of bile in my mouth, remembering how I had to write out that name, all those checks, all of those years ago. There's no way it's the same guy, right? I walk over to Phil, who is still by the reception desk. Phil, I say, how do you know that name, Hank Wazowski? Phil explains that Hank is his real estate agent. I bought my condo through him several years ago. I'm selling my condo now so I can buy a house, so I'm going to ask him to be my agent again. Do you know him? I tell Phil that I used to rent an apartment from Hank and described what he looks like. Phil confirms the description. It's the same guy. Wow, small world, right? And on cue, right then the front door to the office opens and in walks Hank Wazowski. I stare in disbelief. He's carrying a folder of papers and doesn't recognize me. Phil and Hank shake hands and they talk for a few moments. I stand there, silently wondering what to do. Phil finally says, "This is my friend, Rocky Mouse. I think you may have already met." "Yes, hello, Hank. Good to see you again. My wife and I were your tenants a few years ago on Insert Street. Remember the software developer who rented for a year, saving to buy a house? Well, this is where I work with Phil." Hank's eyes indicate he now remembers me, and he's starting to put it all together. We shake hands, and he says, yes, of course. He remembers, and asks how we are doing. "Oh, we're fine, thanks for asking," Phil says, "that you're his real estate agent. Small world, isn't it?" Hank nods pleasantly. He still doesn't remember the details of our last conversation. I do some quick math in my head. This is the early mid-2000s. The real estate market is very strong and easy money for any agent. The crash of 2008 is still a few years in the future. I start to think out loud. Selling the condo for about 150 to 200,000, and you're looking at houses in the 500,000 range. So that's 650 to 700,000 in total transaction. An agent getting 3% on the sale and the purchase is getting around 2K for his trouble. That's a good commission for the agent, isn't it? Hank's eyes flash, and I can tell he remembers everything about me now. Phil is surprised at my passive-aggressive tone. I am enjoying the uncomfortable silence. Hank deflects my question, saying, "It's complicated," and tells Phil to send the papers as soon as possible. He shakes hands with Phil, looks at me, nods, and goes to leave. "It was really good to see you again, Hank," I call behind him. He exits the building. As the door is still shutting, I say a bit too loudly, "So, that Hank in here, Phil, didn't sign any. Don't sign anything just yet. I have a story to tell you." Phil looks at me and says, "Rocky, what the hell was that about?" He looks angry and confused at my behavior. I tell Phil the whole story. The rent, the $500 increase, the security deposit. You don't have to like it, you just have to pay it. Everything. "Phil, you can't use this guy to sell your condo and buy a house. I hate him. He's evil. I'll help you find another real estate agent. Just use anyone but Hank." So the great thing about Phil is that, well, he's a great guy. He's a little surprised at my story, and has always known Hank as a straightforward guy. But I totally see him doing that to you, he admits. "There's no way I could use him now. What a dick!" Then Phil's eyes lit up a bit. "What do you want me to say when I fire him?" I have special feelings for Phil now. We came up with a plan, and I made sure there were some key phrases in Phil's repertoire. We planned it all out together in advance. My only regret is that I didn't get to see Hank's reaction in person a day later when Phil made the following phone call when I stood behind him listening. "Hi, Hank. It's Phil calling. Yeah, about that. I've been decided to get some other quotes from other agents. I'm not going to sign up with you." No. You shouldn't give a discount. You'd be losing money if you did that." Pause. "No, this is just the decision I've made. No, it has nothing to do with Rocky Moose." Pause. "Well, you don't have to like it, Hank. You just have to accept it. Goodbye." And it was the greatest revenge I could have ever imagined. Through a chance meeting years later, Hank got screwed out of $20,000 in easy commissions. And the best part is, Hank absolutely knew it had everything to do with Rocky Moose. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, it helps the channel a lot. See you next time.